Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon to some. I realize we are probably all across different time zones. Welcome to today's webinar to kick off this year's recognition program through the Efficient and Healthy Schools campaign. I'm Riley Loveland. I'm a senior project manager at New Buildings Institute, and you'll hear more about the actual campaign from our speakers today. But for those who are brand new to this effort, the Efficient and Healthy Schools campaign exists to engage K-12 schools to improve energy performance and indoor air quality. The campaign is working with schools to implement practical solutions involving HVAC and other technologies to reduce energy use and carbon emissions. I'm so excited for you all to be here and to learn about the campaign and the recognition efforts, because this campaign is led by our friends at the U.S. Department of Energy, with technical support from Lawrence Berkeley National Lab and additional support from us at New Buildings Institute. And on that note, with us today is Sydney Applegate, a Science, Technology, and Policy Fellow at the Building Technologies Office of US DOE, Luke Gomes, Technology Manager and Project Officer at the Office of State and Community Energy Programs at US DOE, Renji Chan, Indoor Environment Team at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, and then Richard Perkins, who's the Operations Manager at Columbia Public School District, joining us from the Central Time Zone in Columbia, Missouri. I will let all of them actually formally introduce themselves later, because they can obviously do a much better job than I can. And we'll have actually all of our presenters wave really quickly, and then why don't you all hop off screen. Luke, you can stay though. We'll have them hop off screen for bandwidth, but don't worry, you'll see them all again. And then before we begin, I have a couple of housekeeping item things for you all. First, you may have noticed you're muted and we cannot hear you. This helps keep background noise down so that everyone can hear our speakers better, but you have an opportunity to put your questions in the chat, your comments in the chat. We do have an actual questions pane, so if I can direct you to the dashboard that you should be able to see on the right-hand side of your screen. If you're having technical difficulties and cannot see the slides or hear our speakers, you can use the question pane in this dashboard to let us know, and we'll help you as we go. We have a whole team on our back end here to help with communications. And then of course, we'll take questions along the way, so please type them into the questions pane anytime during the session, and I will encourage you throughout to do so. And then at the end of the webinar, we would very much appreciate if you would take our short survey. We just want to know what you thought about the webinar today, and we'll also be asking if you'd like more information about the campaign or the recognition program. And finally, I wanted to make sure to mention that this webinar is being recorded, and after the webinar, we'll be sending a note with a link to the presentation slides and a full recording of the event. We'll also include any links or anything else that comes up today that you all are interested in. This will allow you to view on demand and forward things on to others who you also think might be interested. And so that is enough from me. I'm going to turn this over to Luke.
Thank you so much, Riley. Well, welcome everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today about our very exciting and new program. And it's titled the Renew America Schools Program. And this is a program that's been kind of envisioned through the bipartisan infrastructure law. I'll talk a little bit about myself. So I've been with the U.S. Department of Energy now for about 13 years. I worked in the energy efficiency and renewable energy portion of DOE. And then recently I moved over to what's been created as the Office of State and Community Energy Programs to work on the new schools program. So very excited to be here. Appreciate all of the interest and support here. And I'll go ahead and have you move to the next slide, Riley. All right. So the bipartisan infrastructure law has given us statutory authority for $500 billion worth of grant program funding over the next 4 years. And we'll be creating different funding opportunities over the next 4 years to trickle this funding out. And go ahead to the next slide. All right. So if you look here, it talks a little bit about the need across schools in the United States. So on the left-hand side, you can see that schools are the second largest public infrastructure sector, and historically, they've had pretty minimal investment from a federal perspective. And then, the second bullet here looks a little bit about deferred maintenance. So, we've received $500 million to spread across the schools, but in reality, there's about an $85 billion deferred maintenance shortfall. So it's quite a gap, unfortunately. And so we're trying to leverage the funding as best we can and make as large of a difference as we can over the next 4 to 5 years with the funding that we have available. If you look to the right portion of the screen, it kind of breaks this down, this deferred maintenance piece a little bit further. And so you can see the areas where we really need improvements within schools, K through 12 facilities. So the largest need obviously is within the HVAC portion of schools. About a third of all schools need some level of HVAC improvement. And then again, if you look at lighting, that's another area where from an efficiency standpoint, there's a significant investment need that needs to happen over the next several years. Another thing that we've looked into is indoor environmental quality and how it kind of impacts students' learning and health overall. And obviously, with the last bullet here, utility costs can reduce the overall funding for classrooms kind of writ large. So to the extent that we're able to impact utility costs, we can funnel additional money back into the schools for learning. Go ahead to the next slide. All right, so funding. I mentioned this already. We really have a pretty small pool, but it seems maybe large in context, but based on the need, it's not a whole lot. So we have $500 million over the next 4 to 5 years. And these grants are built to support, comprehensive energy efficiency audits and building retrofits and HVAC and lighting upgrades, clean energy installations, renewable energy installations, and along with training to kind of help staff maintain these improvements over the long term. We'll be looking for potential applicants, and they'll be considered based upon, the partnering districts, the LEAs that have a demonstrated funding need for energy improvements. And again, whether the school serves a high percentage of students who are eligible for a free or reduced price lunch. So we're looking to fund those schools that really have the largest need for energy improvements and are in historically disadvantaged areas. Okay, I'll go ahead and move to the next slide. All right, so our goals overall include, trying to facilitate substantial additional investments. So leverage funding, taking that $500 million and getting as many multiples as we possibly can, trying to bring in industry funding from either energy performance savings contracts, other mechanisms that might help us double or triple or quadruple that funding and bring in as much leverage as possible. We're also looking to try to minimize the administrative burden associated with the actual funding opportunity overall. So trying to make it accessible to those districts that maybe don't have the administrative capacity to apply and manage grants overall. The other thing we're looking to do is build resilience and enduring capacity within these districts. So this is sort of planting a seed for the future and allowing it to hopefully flourish within the districts over the next several years. And then again, try to maximize the impact and the equitability and efficiency of the funding overall. Next slide, please. All right, so with that in mind, the way this is structured is we have 2 specific topic areas that were outlined within the bill provision. So the first of which is called high impact energy efficiency and health improvements. So we're looking for proposals under this topic area that are very specific to the deferred maintenance portion of what I had spoken to earlier. So an energy improvement that results in some sort of direct reduction to school energy costs. It increases energy efficiency, and it leads to some sort of improvement in teacher and student health. That would include indoor air quality as well. So these energy improvements could take the form of a repair, a renovation, or an installation that maybe facilitates the efficiency associated with the building envelope. It could be an HVAC system, perhaps the domestic hot water heating system. It could be your lighting system, including sensors, a power system, or other building controls as well. The second topic area we've called innovative energy technology packages, and this is where we're looking just a little bit beyond deferred maintenance into what other innovations could occur. This could be, any kind of proposal that includes innovative energy technology. So it could be, again, efficiency measures. I came from a program previously in the building technology office called Connected Communities, and that looked at grid interactive efficient buildings and how those buildings could be used as demand response or resiliency hubs, or to further help utilities where we have transmission that's, again, woefully underfunded from an overarching perspective. So this might look at renewable energy technologies, could be solar, could be small wind, it could be battery installations. We're looking at alternative fuel vehicle infrastructure, perhaps bi-directional charging with buses and things like that. Could also be, the purchase or lease of alternative fueled vehicles. So there are new emerging technologies that could fit into the space as well that could, again, help to leverage and push that technology forward for the industry kind of writ large. All right, next slide. All right, so innovation, talking a little bit more about this. So we're going to encourage applicants to consider projects that are replicable. So one of the things that we want to do, I talked about planting that seed a little earlier, and what we want to do is make sure that we're creating projects that can be replicated in other communities and are scalable as well, so that those impacts can be felt all over the United States, taking that $500 million and not only leveraging it through additional funding, but also through replicable business models and technology. So we want to see sustainable partnerships, we want to see leveraged funding, and we want to see economies of scale. And we want that also to be targeted towards communities that have been historically disadvantaged, improving student and teacher and occupant health, and then also trying to incorporate that to some extent within the curriculum so that we can help students to enrich their learning and growth. And again, targeting schools that serve as community assets. So if your school serves as a resiliency center or a disaster relief center, we really want to also kind of harness that. And then, those opportunities should be crafted within the context of public school facilities. All right, and then our next slide. So this is a second component of what we're doing with the funding under 405, 401. So this is called the Energy Class Prize. So we have what will be the funding opportunity, and then this is what we are looking at as a capacity building prize. So the prize was designed to support local education agencies, districts helping to establish and train energy managers. So in many of these cases, whether it's disadvantaged or non-disadvantaged community, many of the districts do not currently have building energy managers, which is sort of an essential portion of building capacity from an energy efficiency standpoint within that community. So what we're looking to do is take this prize and this cash prize to school district administration and facility staff to make energy management a sustainable feature within those communities. And hopefully then help through that reduce utility costs, improve air quality, improve learning through the prize. So we're looking to fund about $4.5 million worth of awards. So 3.75 million of that would be a cash prize for the select LEAs to fund those energy management positions. And then there would be an additional $750,000 that'll be going out for technical assistance and to form a train network partnership. And then you can see some additional breakdowns here. So there's each one of the individual prize we envision would be about $100,000 to support the building of an FTE or full-time equivalent position for a building energy manager. And then there would be an opportunity to also win $50,000 bonus prize upon completion of the training. All right, next slide. So this talks a little bit about sort of maximizing impact, taking that $500 million, that seed that we're planting, and trying to grow that. And these are some of the opportunities that could be used to grow that or leverage that funding. So you can see our portion is $500 million there. There's, obviously an opportunity to leverage other federal programs, tax incentives, state incentives, utility incentive programs, and then, as I mentioned earlier, performance contracting. So these are areas that people should consider, perhaps for leverage funding would be a good way, to try to start exploring some of those opportunities. One thing that people should be aware of, though, is that there are specific regulations and sort of governing principles around using federal funding for multiple programs or agencies. So just be aware of that. I think, all of these are really good sources to try to maximize the funding that we have available for efficiency, but just be aware of the governing regulations associated with that funding as well. All right, and on to our next slide. All right, so finally, we have sort of a call to action here for all those folks that are interested. So I would encourage everyone to please read the notice of intent. We included a link here. It is titled Renew America's Schools FOA. Then go ahead and sign up for updates on our website. So the link is here as well. And you can kind of follow along with the class prize as well as the funding opportunity on that website. And then finally, we are kind of compiling a teaming partner list. So even if you're not a local educational agency or a school district, as defined in the authorizing statute, that doesn't mean that you can't participate. We are looking for people to form these innovative partnerships. So please take a look at the teaming list. If you feel like your technology, your industry fits within that and that you could help these school districts, in their application process, please feel free to send an email to the schoolsfoa@doe.gov email address and add yourself to the teaming list. And then again, with the Energy Class Prize, the website is included here as well. And then with that, I will hand this over to my colleague, Sydney Applegate, for her portion of the presentation. Thank you, Sydney.
Thank you, Luke. It's great to hear about the funding opportunities that DOE is putting out this year and in future years for such critical public facilities as K-12 schools. So hi, I'm Sydney Applegate. I am in a sister office to Luke's State and Community Energy Program. I am in the Building Technologies office, and I am a Science, Technology, and Policy Fellow. I will be talking about kind of the catch-all bucket that is not funding, so other DOE resources for schools and school districts under this Efficient and Healthy Schools campaign. Next slide. All right. So I know Riley gave a bit of an overview at the start, but to talk briefly a little bit more in depth about the Efficient and Healthy Schools campaign. The intent of the campaign is to do a few different things all at once because we are the Department of Energy. We do want to improve energy performance, reduce carbon emissions, and especially during this campaign, we would also like to, or our goal is to promote a healthy learning environment in schools. So that can mean improved indoor air quality, environmental quality, things of that nature, which we again will talk about a little bit more in depth during my section, as well as I will be passing it off after me to Renji Chan, who is with the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, and she will be talking more in depth about a couple different aspects of the campaign as well. So focusing again on the slide here, the goal is to engage specifically with historically underserved schools and school districts, especially serving low-income students and students in rural areas. We could not do this campaign without the amazing support of the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, as well as the New Buildings Institute, NBI, who is hosting this webinar for us. And we are also working closely with the U.S. Department of Education and U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, to coordinate efforts across agencies related to schools. Next slide. All right, so everyone on this call should hopefully be able to do something after this webinar, falling into one of these two buckets. Participants, which would generally be schools or school districts, or campaign supporters, which would generally be designers, engineers, consultants, program implementers, someone who is associated with the school or can talk to school officials. As participants, there is a lot of benefit. I know the government always says like technical assistance, but here we are laying out specifically what types of resources and support the campaign will be providing to participants. So first here is access to technical assistance. Sometimes that can be even like a one-on-one technical assistance type scenario, resources on best practices, guidance, case studies, webinars, again, on all of the topics that I just mentioned on the prior slide, as well as the second bullet here we will talk more in depth about today, which is the recognition branch of this program. So the campaign does provide recognition for schools on their efforts to improve energy performance, health, emissions reductions, or resilience. There is also opportunities for schools or school districts to engage in peer-to-peer learning, which can be very essential for the specific building type. And lastly, for schools that would like to participate in the development of technical resources in association with our national lab, they are welcome to do that. There's a lot of different ways for schools to engage. So they can either do that by engaging in technical resources to simplify the process for energy performance, or maybe like similar to what Luke was just talking about, scaling and replicating those solutions across the nation that all of our schools really need. And secondly, down here, we do have content related to what supporters will be doing to help the campaign. The first one is really getting the message out. Assisting DOE, we can only do so much. We can't talk to every single human, every single school district across the country, unfortunately. So supporters would be taking on that role of advocating and sharing the benefits of efficient and healthy school buildings, partnering with the campaign to promote our efforts and promote our resources specifically to those targeted schools that I mentioned in low-income and rural school districts, as well as receive recognition for support. Next slide. So I will give a brief overview of the recognition program and also a little background, and then Renji will talk in more depth about the recognition program for this year. So it says here the second round of recognition. Some people will be like, oh, I didn't know there was a first round. So last year there was a bit of a undercover first round. We weren't allowed to publicly really release information about that recognition round. I will say that it was focused on HVAC last year. So we actually have someone speaking later who was recognized in our first round of recognition. This year, we're expanding the categories and topic areas for recognition out to more broadly, energy efficiency plus health, as well as emissions reductions and resilience. Next slide. All right, I have two more slides, which I'll go through pretty quickly. They're basically just like a little brief clip about what resources we have. We are constantly developing more resources for schools specifically. We have a resource hub, is what we like to call it, built on the energy.gov schools, efficient and healthy schools website, as well as the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab campaign website. You can see the same resources in both locations. Obviously, as a DOE employee, I put the DOE website here. Next. So to just provide a brief glance at a couple different resources that you can tap into, there is a Better Buildings Challenge. Hopefully we have some folks on here today from that program. They can obviously speak more about that than me. We also have the Zero Energy Schools Accelerator, Resources for High Performance, the campaign that we're talking about now, as well as various case studies with K-12 schools. Next. And with that, I will pass it over to my amazing colleague, Renji Chan at the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory.
Thank you, Sydney. I'm gonna wave and I'm gonna turn my camera off just to save some bandwidth. So before I start, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm a staff scientist at Berkeley Lab. Really happy to support DOE on this in the Efficient and Healthy Schools campaign. And before I tell you a little bit more about the recognitions, I'd like to stress that we're offering free technical assistance. So please join today. There's a chat, and you can click on it and join our campaign. And especially we're targeting schools serving low-income student population and in rural areas. Next. And step one of getting this free technical assistance is to join the campaign. So we're here to listen to your questions and connect you with experts in a range of areas. So if you are interested in learning more about indoor air quality, I'm a staff scientist at Berkeley Lab with a background in indoor air quality, so you'll be talking to me. But if you're interested in other technology, low carbon technologies, maybe building controls, we have a team of experts here to support you. So we talk you through the strategies and here to connect you with also other federal programs. So for example, Sydney mentioned that we have Department of Education, so we're working with the Green Ribbon Schools program. And on US EPA side, we have IAQ 2 for schools that we're working with, and also portfolio manager. Next. So our first UF campaign was a soft launch, but very successful. We got 42 participants. But what we want to do this year is really emphasize that we're offering free technical assistance. We really want to hear what are the challenges that you guys are facing with and provide technical assistance when we can. So it can range from looking at a document review with you or coming up with strategies that maybe you have a retrofit projects you're thinking through, planning. We'll definitely help you think through some of the key challenges and things that you can overcome them. Next. So switching gear to talk about the recognition program. Next. So as Sydney mentioned, there are two categories. Last year was very focused on HVAC. This year, we're kind of broadening it up a little bit. There's one category called energy efficiency plus health. So to recognize schools and districts for improving energy efficiency and indoor environmental quality. Not just indoor air quality, but we'll also like to recognize projects that improve lighting, improve thermal comfort, improve acoustics, which is really important for students to be able to hear teachers. Next, the other category is the emissions reductions and resilience. So it's to help recognize schools and districts for reducing carbon emissions and improving resilience. Now, there's also two tracks of two ways to participate in this recognition. One track is called the planning track. So this is where we want to recognize efforts that you may be committing to planning to make improvements. We'll be having a webinar series, and the next slides you'll get some links to it, where you can sign up and learn from the experts, get access to technical assistance for using some of the tools that are out there to help you achieve energy efficiency plus health and do emission reduction and resilience. Next slide. Today, you'll be able to sign up for those planning track webinars. They will happen in January, February, and March. And once you can, so you'll attend those webinars and you can also watch the recording if you can't make it. And in the spring, our team will be Berkeley Lab and NBI organizing the call today. We'll be here to help you prepare your final submission so that you can be recognized for your effort. You must complete your work by May 1st. And then we're planning an in-person event to celebrate your success sometime in June. Next. So here are the three webinars that are being planned for each track. So when you sign up for an energy efficiency plus health track, what you'll be learning is in the first one, what are some of the simple tools that you can help you identify ways to save energy and improve indoor environmental quality. The next webinar, you'll learn about how to assess your building stock. So we'll be sharing tools to do energy benchmarking and doing indoor environmental quality assessment. In the first webinar in March, you will learn about building assessment tools that school can use in thinking through the planning for the energy retrofit. For the emissions reductions and resilience track, the first webinar is to help you think through what are some of the ways that you can get ready for electrification, use low carbon technologies to improve resilience, lower your emissions. Webinar number 2 in February, you'll learn about greenhouse gas tracking, some of the tools that are available for you to do that. And then finally, the last one, to how to think and plan for climate vulnerability and resilience. Next. So here are the links. You can sign up today. If you click on the link, you can sign up for all 3 tracks. They are happening, I think, on the same day of the month. So hopefully that will work with your schedule. And if not, you can watch the recordings. Next. And if you are a school district listening today thinking, I already done a lot of these types of retrofit that I think would fit in the energy efficiency plus health or emissions reduction resilience, then you can apply for the implementation track. So we're trying to recognize projects that went well. There are lessons learned and case studies that we can share more broadly those learnings with other school districts. So for the implementation track, what we're trying to really understand is your project approach, any documented outcomes, whether it's energy saving or improvement in indoor environmental quality, and then you'll complete your application to share with us together with supporting materials, so to kind of tell us of how your project went, lessons learned, and you also get a chance to be a case study to share with others. Next. For the implementation track, you have until March 1st to submit your applications. Feel free to reach out to us today. We can send you the link to the website where you can download the application form, so you can take a look at the questions we're asking you. It's open-ended question, and we're pretty tech savvy, so if you're supporting materials, a different file format, we're not really restrictive. We just really try to understand how your retrofit project went and how you document your outcomes. Next. And before I hand it over, a great camping year last year. Next slides. Because we got lots of great supports from our partnering agency, the Department of Education, US EPA, and also from the White House. The 8 school district that received recognition was mentioned in a White House website. Last year was more focused on HVAC indoor air quality. With the expanded categories, really want to hope that more of you would apply this year. Next. And with that, I'd like to introduce Richard Perkins from Columbia Public Schools, Missouri. Our judges from staff from DOE, staff from Department of Education, EPA was so impressed by how comprehensive the approach was in making sure that the HVAC retrofits result in high performance, really starting at a high standard of minimum requirements in the design phase, followed with really good installation, operation and maintenance practices, and verifying performance by commissioning and doing CO2 monitoring. So Richard today will share with us what getting the recognition means for their schools, and then I'll follow with some questions for Richard to see where they are at. So Richard.
Very good. Thank you so much, Renji. Could you enable sharing so I could fire up my presentation? All right, here we go. Sorry for the technical delays. As Renji said, my name is Richard Perkins. I'm with Columbia Public Schools. We are a public school district in the middle of Missouri, which is basically the middle of the middle. So my presentation's a little bit interactive, so I do apologize if I scroll too quickly. Not too sure where all the audience members are from, but just to give you kind of a geographic idea of where we are right in the middle. And then when people ask us, where are you in the state of Missouri? We say, well, we're in the middle of the middle. So our district, we span 301 square miles. We have all sorts of strange and arduous weather that confronts us. For instance, the other day at 5 a.m. it was 62 degrees. I'm outside wearing flip-flops, going to a football game. Comes to 8 o'clock in the morning and it's 31 degrees and still in the flip-flop. So, Missouri faces quite a few challenges when it actually comes to weather. And as Rich was saying, we applied for this recognition, and it was really for the people behind the scenes. We have a whole slew of people in our facilities department, starting with the director of facilities and construction services. We have a district engineer, we have an energy manager, and then we have an indoor air quality technician. So we've got quite a good organization of folks who deal with indoor air quality. My first day on the job, my boss called me and said, Richard, fix COVID. I said, well, can't really fix COVID, but we can do some stuff about it. So we started working with the whole entity, and sometimes you get siloed, and then everyone's got their own little area that they deal with, but we all came together. COO, CFO, superintendent all said, let's get together and let's do this work and let's try and get it safe for the students as best we can. So we started mitigating on the premise of we'll kill COVID-19. So we started out with a couple of bipolar ionization units, and then we expanded across the district. So that was an interesting trial. We also invested in new technologies, and a lot of it was expired old HVAC systems. So we used the ESSA monies to upgrade systems, and it was really purely based on age of systems. We've just completed 3 years of energy audits and actually whole building audits, which has provided us so far with about $500 million thereabouts in deferred maintenance. We have 32 buildings that are schools, and then we have another several that are support buildings. So we have a big problem, and I'm not too sure about the other districts out there, but you're probably in a similar boat. The age of your building fleet is, 1900s onwards, and all the headaches with each district, or each decade, I should say, we're now facing, and that comes down to that deferred maintenance, and that comes down to that $500 million pot of money which is available. On the recognition side of the project, not to talk about the sad side of things, but we have had a lot of recognition through this program. So we do have a website, and it was viewed 101,000 times just in the space of April of 2022. We also put a flyer out in the Quarterly Connection newsletter, which reaches 70,000 homes within the school district. We were also included in our internal annual report, which goes out to the 70,000 homes as well. And then budgeting. So where we're trying to use this recognition is on our long range planning. So we have a 10-year long range plan. We have 3 years worth of facility condition audits, which gives us that $500 million. And then we start plugging this into our 10-year plan. So this is where the recognition gives us a bit more leverage within the district's administration. We did have an internal television acknowledgement at one of the board meetings, and I'll not bore you with all these links, but I can share those in the chat later on. And we'll go down here. And then national recognition. The White House announced the 8 districts who were nationwide honorees, and we were one of them. So that all of a sudden opens up some doors for grants, alternate funding sources, and that's the biggest thing we probably face in our district is we are tax-based, so we are funded by the taxpayer. Anything outside of the norm when it doesn't come to education is something we have to go out and beat the bushes for. So that's where this national recognition comes in, and this is where this department's recognition comes in. So we can go out there and we can say, we can do this and we will do this as the best stewards of the taxpayer dollar. We also have some related programming that we're working on. We're piloting an outdoor wellness space. And I don't know if we've got enough time, Renji, for me to quickly jump in there or jump in and out or not. If you could advise.
I think we have a couple of minutes.
Okay, all right, well, let's jump across to that then quickly. So the University of Missouri system has a mental health component, and I'll just really briefly go through this one. They came to us with $50,000. We had 2 interns. The whole premise of this project is for mental health, sustainability, and sustainability, I'll just sort of stay on that one for a little bit. It's about the entire area. So we're designing a courtyard with accessibility in mind, with sustainability in mind, and sustainability meaning everything that we put in there is going to be long lasting. So we're not going to build wooden sand tables. We're going to get stainless steel. We're going to build things that last. So when we look through the prism of sustainability, it's not about just planting plants, it's about building things to last as well. So our carbon footprint, we try to minimize it from now on. So that's just a little kind of vision through what the interns did over the summer. And then I'll jump back to here. Oh, no, that's another one, sorry. And then really just a special thanks to the Department of Energy, the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, and the Efficient and Healthy Schools program. And with that, I think I'm done.
Great, thank you, Richard. I was just going to follow up with a couple questions and then hand it back to Riley, a more general Q&A.
Okay,
I think you mentioned, some of the earlier COVID efforts. Some say we're in a new phase, so we are thinking more strategically, long-term changes or actions. Can you share with you some of the things that you guys are doing now?
Yeah, so with those building audits in place, we are moving to upgrade the older systems, integrate better control systems, anything we can do to better the environment for both student, staff, and faculty is what we're going for. The challenge is finding those funding resources and making sure that we can leverage local monies that we have through the state to federal monies and making sure there's no strange overlaps that we have to avoid.
Great to hear. And it seems like you guys are able to benefit from some of the federal funding available, so ESSER funding, been able to channel into the HVAC retrofits. Is that right?
That's correct. And we just completed 3 HVAC partial renovations, and then we'll use the remainder of the ESSER funds that are out there for us for a couple more schools just to complete them out. So we're not spending it piecemeal. We're trying to focus on entire buildings and get it all up to snuff, and then we look at the building envelopes and see what we can do in the next round. Not necessarily HVAC driven, but building envelope driven.
Oh, that's great. So final question for you. You heard that the recognition program is kind of shifting a little gear a little bit, with generally recognizing energy efficiency plus health. When you hear that term, what does it mean for your schools? What type of project have you done or planning to do that you think, oh yeah, that really speaks to it?
Well, there's quite a few projects we're working on at the moment. I think really we've got a lot of crossovers between indoor air quality and then just site sustainability. So I think I'm really kind of dodging the question, but we're just trying to bring them together, and it's as much outdoor time we can have with the students we will in a comfortable and secure area. And then as we look at the inside, it'll be lighting retrofits, it'll be dimmable lights. The controls are the biggest part of the lighting upgrade that we feel is important. And then we also look at our SPED rooms, so the special education district rooms. And those are the rooms where you have to pay the most attention to, because they're the neediest of the needy students, in a very positive way, because that means you have to design really hard to make sure that what you're doing in those classrooms is good for those students, because they have such a variety of needs. It goes to mental wellness, it goes to accessibility. And then once you've piloted that and you figure out what the nuances are, boom, you spread across the entire district. So we're creating these specifications, these plans, we're asking the questions, we're getting the negative feedback, we're implementing, we're getting the negative feedback. Then we figure out the problem and the solution, and then we move on, and we're standardizing throughout the district as we go.
That's really great. Thank you so much, Richard. Glad you mentioned lighting. For those of you who are new to the campaign, we did do one webinar pretty recently on lighting, so feel free to check it out. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Riley.
Thank you.
Thank you both. And I'm going to invite all of our panelists to come back online instead of just me here. Richard, you can come back too, just in case we have questions for you. Excellent. All right, so I have some questions in our question panel, but if you have other questions, panelists, and I'm sorry, not panelists, attendees, feel free to put them in. We're sort of actively responding to them. All right, first of all, actually, several people have said thank you for hosting this session. So thank you, panelists. I wanted to make sure that you got that. Thank you. First question, I work at a tribal school. Is there a specific amount set aside or a focus for tribal schools? Luke, I think that's to you.
Okay, thank you. So the answer, I think the short answer is no, that ours will be open to all districts. So that would include tribal schools, but there isn't a specific set aside for BIA schools.
I will say that the campaign and recognition really does have an emphasis on supporting tribal schools. So although there may not be funding directly available or a funding pot for tribal schools, there's a lot of technical and, you know, sort of like emotional support available through the campaign and the recognition. So know that there is a lot of support for you out there.
Riley, if I can jump in, just say one more thing. With the campaign, we are working with the Bureau of Indian Education. We're doing some indoor air quality pilot. So if you're interested in learning more about your indoor air quality, feel free to contact us from the campaign side. We can talk you through some of the things that we would like to watch out for. And then we also, for the campaign, we have technical support. So if you're in a tribal school or other schools, you feel free to come to us, and we're here to help.
Yeah, I'm just building off that a little bit.
Go ahead, Sydney.
Sorry. Building off just what Renji said a little bit more, we do have specific subcontracts with a few different technical assistance folks who are based in different geographic regions of the country to understand and support different tribal communities in those regions. So Alaska, Hawaii, and I think the Southwest as well. So if your tribal community is in those one of those regions, hopefully we can provide more geographic specific support.
I'm just going to add that if my answer seems sort of short and to the point, we are sort of in a very procurement sensitive time for our funding opportunities. So I'll try to be as concise as possible and answer your questions. But there are definitely some details that we're not maybe at liberty to disclose at this point.
Thank you for that clarification. And, I mentioned the survey in the beginning of this webinar. So if you're interested in that kind of technical support for your tribal school, I can actually see who submitted that, so we can also follow up with you. But in the survey, please fill out that you would like some support, and we'll reach out to you. Anyone else? Great. Okay. Next question. Does this funding only apply to schools, or can it also be applied to district admin and support facilities?
So I guess I would point you to the provision itself. So take a look at the bill legislation, section 40541. But anecdotally, it is pretty specific to a local education agency and schools specifically. So I think it's primarily geared towards schools.
Anyone have anything else to add? And we can drop a link to that language in the chat for you all so that you can review it. We'll also include it in the follow-up email. All right. It's fun to see some of these questions from some school district friends. So hi, everybody. For the energy class prize, would you consider an option for just the staff training and technical assistance if the district already has the position in place but needs the training?
Not sure I understood that question. Maybe one more time.
Sure. So I think that what they're saying is that the class prize, they already have a staff. So they're wondering if they can utilize the funding for just staff training and technical assistance as opposed to getting a position in place.
I think that's a possibility. But again, I would look to the class prize rules specifically once they're published to see if that's actually a possibility. I know what we're trying to do, and I'll just talk about this maybe at a more fundamental level, is to look at school districts that maybe do not have energy managers or those positions at all and try to build that capacity so that those school districts really have the resources to look at their building stock, complete initial energy audits. And again, I think I talked a little bit about trying to plant that seed. So if there's already an existing building energy position there, I'm not sure that we would fund an additional position. But if there was a need for staff training, perhaps that's something that could be addressed there. So
Luke,
I guess, yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, I was just going to say, again, once the rules are published, I would encourage people to look through the rules more specifically. I think that would be my advice overall. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think I just wanted to plug some training resources through the campaign as well. If you need specific funding for the training, then that wouldn't be incorporated, but there is free accessible training for schools or school districts, as well as with some of our partner organizations as well.
And we're hoping to do some direct hand holding, so we're not doing the work for you, but you can get some help from us. So hopefully that will, even though we're not offering funding, but you gain a lot more than just doing an online course. We hope to do more engaging and one-on-one assistance.
And in our district, we're utilizing Energy Star, so that tracks a lot of metrics. Currently, I'll be very frank, we're not using it to the best abilities as we could. So we're tracking energy usage, we're not really tracking water usage. There's solid waste and then there's diversion. So again, it's understanding what the problem is that you have and getting your arms around it. So, we may be looking at $1 billion, hug, as it were, to try and figure it out. But we have other means as well. So our local solid waste division actually has grants available, and they're reimbursable grants. So you put in a recycling program, you divert the material, you put it into Energy Star. Our issue is breaking down the silos and making sure that the energy manager realizes that underneath their purview, they should be tracking this. And then that can be pushed out to the public, and they can say, hey, we're diverting X amount of thousands of pounds of cafeteria waste, which is one we're actually pursuing right now. Straightforward recycling, plastics, aluminium, bottles, all the rest of it. So just from a district who's trying to do, there are mechanisms for doing it. The people doing those jobs have to really not just focus on what their sole mission is, but they have to be able to diversify as well.
Great. Way to ground truth that. Thank you.
Sorry, hopefully that wasn't too much.
No, that was excellent. Thank you. It's always good to have the actual district experience, to showcase how things are being used. So thank you.
Mhm.
This is for Renji, Sydney. So is the recognition for ongoing future projects only for projects that are recently completed? We're nearing the end of a performance contract that implemented, oh no, I lost the question. Sorry about that. Somehow it disappeared. That is my bad completely. Sorry, we're nearing the end of a performance contract that implemented a number of efficiency measures, and we added a solar component at those schools.
Reach out to us. We are looking for some documented outcomes. So depending how far along, maybe you already have some data that you're ready to be recognized this year. But we do plan for this to be an ongoing program. So if you missed this year, still come talk to us. We'd like to hear about it. And then next year, for sure, then submit with all your data. Sydney, you have anything more to add?
No, that covers it. Thank you, Renji.
This is kind of an additive question on there. So besides financial incentives, what types of recognition are available? And I love this question. How is it broadcasted?
Within the campaign or outside of the campaign, other recognition opportunities, do you think? I guess I'm not asking the question person, but
I mean, they're welcome to put in the question, but I would believe within our recognition, and if I'm wrong, feel free to put this in here, within this recognition program and within the campaign, how is that broadcasted? And you know, what's on the docket for that?
Sydney, should we mention our collaboration with other agencies?
we can. I was also going to maybe pass it back to Riley since NBI is doing more of the outreach work. We are collaborating. I can speak briefly about our collaboration with other agencies. We are collaborating with EPA as well as the Department of Education. I think the Department of Education newsletter is like over 100,000, maybe 300,000, 500. It was between 100 and 500,000 recipients of that newsletter. So merely the newsletter from Green Ribbon Schools is an amazing way to get recognition for your school or school district. The White House has been integral in recognizing these school districts so far. We hope to continue that partnership as well, and working with EPA specifically on more indoor air quality work as well.
Yeah, and just to add to that, we are doing some state-by-state outreach this time. So tomorrow, if you're calling in from Connecticut, you might get a similar webinar ask. Going state by state, talking to your regional EPA, all those offices that are supporting schools, and try to, team up and get the message out.
A little bit of ground truthing on that. We're guilty of it, fully guilty of it. We focus on our community. So when we message out, we're messaging to our tax base. We're missing the greater picture. So that's where this group would really help us be able to message from the national level to the states, because if we try to message up, typically, like shooting a ball in the air, it comes up and then it goes right back down again. But when you drop it from above, it normally hits something or someone. So that's what would benefit a school district versus us trying to message out too far.
I don't really have anything to add. Oh, go ahead, Luke.
I was just going to say, Riley, I maybe would push it back also to the person who asked the question and say, are there specific mediums that we haven't mentioned that would be important to school districts for us to advertise through or to publicize through that are beneficial to you specifically? And we would love to know about that so that we can engage there.
Absolutely.
Yes, Luke, that's a great point. Sorry, really. I just wanted to say that for the 121 people still on the line, this is only our second year. If you have thoughts about ways that you want us to be doing outreach or recognition specifically for you, or the categories, or literally anything about the program, we would love your feedback.
I'll just +1 that. Tell us what you need. We're here for you. We are out of time. It's 11 and 3 seconds. So I'm going to thank all of our presenters. Thank you everyone for being here. Again, fill out that survey so that we can reach out to you. The links are in the chat to the different webinar series. And Renji, Sydney, Luke, Richard, anything else to add?
Appreciate everyone's time.
Mr.
Get
Brad, thank you
ready.
so much.
Get ready. It's busy. It's going to be a busy year for everybody.
All right. Let's shut this down and have a great rest of your day.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.